Welcome back. In the previous chapter, biological classification, we have discussed the five kingdom system of classification, and we have also discussed in detail about kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, and kingdom Fungi. In this lesson, we will be discussing about the fourth kingdom, that is kingdom Plantae, or commonly referred to as plants. Now, initially in the kingdom Plantae, all organisms were included, which included the bacteria, protista, cyanobacteria, along with your bryophyta, pteridophyta, gymnosperms and angiosperms, without making any distinction between their cell organization, between whether they are prokaryotes or eukaryotes, what type of cell wall do they have, are they autotrophic or heterotrophic, isn't it? This was because of choosing only a certain characteristic features for classification. So that led to all the problems. But later, when the five kingdom system of classification was proposed by Robert Whittaker, the changes were taken into consideration and plant kingdom was formed. Currently, plant kingdom includes Thallophyta, that is the algae, Bryophyta, that is the moss, Pteridophyta, that is the fern, gymnosperms and the angiosperms. Only these are present in the plant kingdom. Plants are multicellular organisms which are eukaryotes. They are predominantly autotrophs. A few parasitic plants are present, but most of them are autotrophs. They use the sunlight or some other inorganic material to produce energy. Now their body could be either thalloid, that is body is dorsiventrally flat without any true leaf, stem or roots. So if the body is thalloid, leaf, stem and roots are absent. Whether if the body is erect, then it may have true structures or it may not have true structures. So both kind of plants are present, about which we will discuss in this lesson. Also, cell wall is present. The cell wall may be composed of cellulose, pectin, lignin, etc. And the presence of vascular tissues, that is the xylem and phloem. In some plants, vascular tissues are absent, whereas in some plants vascular tissues are present. And we know that plants are sedentary, they are stationary, they cannot move from one place to another, unlike the animals. So these are non-motile. And how do plants reproduce? They can reproduce either by vegetative propagation, you would have seen through the stem, leaf, root or any other vegetative part of the plant, a new plant arises. That is vegetative propagation. Asexual reproduction is through the formation of spores. The most common spore is a zoospore, which is motile. And of course, sexual reproduction is seen in plants. Sexual reproduction includes the formation of seeds. The seeds may be covered or the seeds may be naked. Based on these features, the plant kingdom is classified into Thallophyta, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, gymnosperms and angiosperms, based on whether the true leaf, stem and roots are present or absent. If they are present, then whether xylem and phloem is present or not. If both are present, then whether they produce seeds or not. If they produce seeds, whether the seeds are covered or not. So that is the basis of classification of the plant kingdom into Algae, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta. These three do not produce seeds, they produce spores, whereas gymnosperms and angiosperms, they produce seeds. In gymnosperms, the seed is not covered by a fruit, it is a naked seed, whereas in angiosperms, seeds are covered by fruit. So that is the basis of classification of the plant kingdom. Now, there are few systems of classification like we discussed. In the earlier days, the plant kingdom was classified on the basis of artificial system of classification proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. In this artificial system of classification, only the external features such as the leaf shape, leaf numbers, stem height, other morphological features were considered for classifying the plants. And also equal weightage was given for the vegetative features as well as the reproductive features, which is actually wrong, because we know that the morphological features or the vegetative features are easily influenced by the environment. In some season the number of leaves may be less, or the shape will be different, or the color may be different. So these are easily affected by the environment. This is given equal weightage with the reproductive features such as the shape and number of the stamens, etc., which is wrong. The second type of classification is called as the natural system of classification as proposed by Bentham and Hooker. This is also called as the Bentham and Hooker system of classification. Here the external features are considered. Along with the external features, internal features of the plant such as its anatomy, phytochemistry, ultra structure of the plant and embryology, all these are also taken into consideration before classifying the plants. So it is a wholesome system of classification which includes both the external as well as the internal features. Nowadays we also have other types of taxonomy based on this. For example, based on the phytochemistry of plants. Phytochemistry means the different types of chemicals produced by the plants. Each group of plant has its own unique type of chemical. This could be alkaloids, flavonoids, or any other secondary metabolites. Using these chemicals also we can differentiate one plant from another group of plants. This is what is called as chemotaxonomy, where the chemical compositions of plants are used for classification. Based on the ultrastructure of plant, so this could be cytotaxonomy. Cytotaxonomy includes the chromosome number, how many chromosomes are there in a nucleus, the shape of the chromosome and their movement. All these are also used for classification of plants. That is what is called as cytotaxonomy. And then there is a new type of device or methodology called as numerical taxonomy. This is highly advanced. Now with the help of computers we can easily punch in data. So here in the numerical taxonomy what we do is every character of the plant is given a number. Say for example we are comparing two plants A and B, and we list down all the features of both the plants: number of leaves, shape of the leaf, position of leaf on the stem, color of the leaf, number of stamens, the position of stamens, so on and so forth. Hundreds and thousands of features, both external as well as internal, are considered, and each one is given a character, that is 0 and 1. If the character is present, it is marked as 1. If the character is absent, it is marked as 0. So all the features of the plants can be listed down over here like this, and their presence or absence can be put into the computer, and the computer will give you a graphical representation of whether these two are related, and if they are related, how closely are they related, with the help of graphs called as cladograms. So numerical taxonomy is also very important in classification of plants. Now when we talk about cladograms, how are two species related? Are they related closely or are they related not too closely? The third type of system of classification is based on this. That is called as the phylogenetic system of classification, which was first proposed by Hutchinson. Other scientists like Engler and Prandtl, Takhtajan are also responsible for its development in the later years. So the phylogenetic system of classification, it takes into account the evolutionary history of the plants. If two plants are similar, it is assumed that they have a common ancestor. If two plants are dissimilar, they will have an ancestor but very farther apart, very far in the past. So let us say we are talking about once again plants A and B. With the help of numerical taxonomy also we can arrive at the same conclusion. So I will make you a simple cladogram. How does this look like? So there is a plant A which has branched into B and C. This has further branched into D, E, and this has branched into currently F and G. So this is what the graph looks like. Now looking at the graph very clearly, you can say that D and E are more closely related to B than C, whereas F and G are related to C. Whereas B and C are very closely related to A. So this is how the evolutionary history of the plant look like. If they are placed together, they are closely related and they have a common ancestor. They have a common ancestor, which of course have their own common ancestor in the past. That is the phylogenetic system of classification, which brings into light new information regarding the classification of plants. So let us now discuss the different groups of plants, that is the Thallophyta, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta in today's session. Under the plant kingdom, the first group of plants that we study are the Thallophyta, or commonly called as the algae or algae. These are predominantly aquatic. They are found in water, that is both fresh water as well as in the seas and oceans. During the rainy season, you will see slimy green colored substances in water, on stones, wood, etc. All these are examples for algae, which are predominantly green in color. And also, other than this, they are found associated with other organisms. For example, lichen, the algae is present with the fungus, that is a lichen. They are also present on other animals like the sloth bear. They get their name Thallophyta. Phyta means plant, thallos means flat. The body is flat. It is dorsiventrally flattened. So that is why they are called as the Thallophyta. The body, they could be either living in colonies. For example, if you look at the diagram of volvox, these are single-celled organisms, but many volvox come together and they live in a group. This is what is called as the colonial forms. Example, volvox. Also, the body could be ribbon shaped. That is what we call it as the filamentous algae. Example, Spirogyra ulothrix in the form of a ladder or a ribbon. Also in oceans you find large areas covered with plants called as the kelps. These are highly rich in nutrition and eaten by the aquatic animals. So they are spread across the ocean bodies. So these are also algae, kelps. Of course, being plants, the algae can prepare their own food with the help of the chlorophyll pigment. So these are autotrophic organisms. Based on the type of chlorophyll present in the algae, the Thallophyta can be further subdivided as green algae, that is Chlorophyceae, brown algae, Phaeophyceae, and red algae, that is Rhodophyceae. So this is the classification based on the type of chlorophyll pigment present, the chemical composition of the cell wall, also the type of food material that is storage food material, and what type of spores do they produce and what is the number of flagellum present in the spores. So based on this, Thallophyta is divided into Chlorophyceae, Phaeophyceae and Rhodophyceae. We will discuss about it in brief. And reproduction, as you know, in plants we have all three types of reproduction. Vegetative reproduction is mostly with the help of fragmentation. Once they become mature, they break into pieces or fragments. Each fragment can grow and form a new organism. Example, ulothrix, Spirogyra, etc. Asexual reproduction is predominantly with the help of spores. The most common type of spores are zoospores, which are motile. They can move. They have flagellum. So zoospores are the most common asexual reproductive spores seen in algae. Other than zoospores, we have chlamydospores, etc. Sexual reproduction in Thallophyta is of three types. In the first type of sexual reproduction, called as the isogamous type, here the gametes are similar, that is the male gamete and the female gamete, they are similar in size. When both the gametes are similar in size, we call it as isogamous type of reproduction, which is seen in ulothrix and in Spirogyra. However, in ulothrix, the gametes have flagella, whereas in Spirogyra, flagellum is absent, but both the gametes are of same size. In anisogamous type, one gamete is larger in size, another gamete is smaller in size. Usually, the larger gamete is a female. Example, Eudorina. In the oogamous type, the larger gamete is the female and it is usually non-motile. It does not move. That's why it's called as the oogamous, that is the ovum. Whereas the male gamete is usually smaller in size and it is the one which has to move and reach the female gamete. This is what is called as oogamous type of reproduction. Example, volvox and fucus. So the larger gamete is female and it is non-motile, whereas the smaller gamete is a male which is motile. So these are the different types of reproduction seen in Thallophyta. The Thallophyta or the algae has innumerable uses for human beings. Most importantly, because these are autotrophic organisms, for their photosynthesis they use carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere. Therefore, they are excellent carbon dioxide fixers. They reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That is number one. Not only that, these are the primary producers in the oceans. All the food produced in the water bodies is due to the algae. These are then eaten up by the zooplanktons, small fishes and other organisms. So these are the primary producers of food. Not only that, they increase the oxygen content in the water. These are also eaten by human beings as food. For example, porphyra, laminaria, sargassum. These are different types of brown algae and red algae eaten as food. Algae, they produce certain substances called as hydrocolloids. These are substances that are able to hold the water. Colloids that can hold water. Example, algin produced by brown algae and carrageen produced by red algae. These are commercially used. Not only that, there is another commercial product called as agar-agar. This is produced by red algae, Gelidium and Gracilaria. These are used in laboratories for growing microorganisms such as fungus, etc. So these are used in laboratories. Also, this is used in cooking for making jellies, ice creams, etc. You would have seen in cooking shows. If you want to make ice cream, they add agar-agar. It will make it like a gel. So that is agar-agar. Another organism that is unicellular chlorella. It is rich in protein source. So it is used as a food supplement even by space travelers. It is a unicellular algae. So these are the different uses of Thallophyta. Let us now discuss about the different types of algae, that is Chlorophyceae, Phaeophyceae and Rhodophyceae briefly. As we discussed earlier, based on the type of chlorophyll pigment, the composition of cell wall and also based on the number and type of flagellum, Thallophyta or algae is classified into Chlorophyceae, that is green algae, Phaeophyceae is brown algae and Rhodophyceae is red algae. Let us compare and contrast the features of these three types with examples. Firstly, we have the green algae or the Chlorophyceae. The major pigment here is chlorophyll A and B, and some amount of carotenoids and xanthophylls are also present. The chlorophyll pigment is used to absorb sunlight, which will produce food which is stored in the form of starch. Inside the chloroplast, there are specialized spherical bodies called as pyrenoids. These are specialized structures which will store starch as well as protein. So this is very important. The cell wall in green algae is made up of cellulose. Sometimes there is a outer coating of pectose also present. So cellulose is the main cell wall component. The gametes or the spores, they usually contain flagellum, which may be either 2 or a maximum of 8 flagella could be seen. All these flagella are equal in size and they are present at the tip of the spore or the gamete. So these are apical, means tip in position. Common examples for green algae are volvox, which is the colonial form. You could see the diagram in the textbook where many cells come together and form a colony, that is the volvox. The filamentous form Ulothrix and Spirogyra is seen. Chlamydomonas is once again a unicellular algae which is in the form of a single cell Chlamydomonas with two flagellum present and a cup-shaped chloroplast with two eye-shaped structures. So this is your Chlamydomonas, which is a single-celled green algae. And we have the Cara, which is a flat-bodied algae. The reproduction is by vegetative propagation, that is by fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is through the formation of zoospores, which are motile spores, and sexual reproduction could be isogamous, anisogamous, or oogamous. That is about the chlorophyceae. The Phaeophyceae is called as brown algae because of the presence of a brown colored xanthophyll pigment called as fucoxanthin. This is the primary pigment. Other than this, it also has got chlorophyll A and chlorophyll C. So that is how it is distinct from Chlorophyceae. Food is stored in the form of mannitol or laminarin, which are complex carbohydrate forms. The cell wall is composed of cellulose and there is an outer covering of cell wall, that is with the help of algin, which is a hydrocolloid. It can store water. If you observe the brown algae, for example Ectocarpus, Laminaria, Fucus, etc., Dictyota, they could be branched or unbranched, and if you look at their body, they have a hold fast which will help them to attach to the rock or the substratum, and then there is a stem-like structure called as the stipe, bearing leaf-like structures called as the frond. So that is the body of the brown algae. The massive oceanic forms such as the kelps are brown algae. Most of these are eaten as food. For example, Laminaria, sargassum can be consumed by human beings. So laminarin, the storage form, is in Laminaria. They have only two flagellum. One is bigger in size, one is small in size. So unequal flagella, and these are lateral in position. So at 180 degrees to each other. Fucus is another example for brown algae. Remember Fucus because it will come once again at the end of the lesson. That's about the brown algae. The third type of algae is the Rhodophyceae. The most important thing about the Rhodophyceae or red algae is that they are non-motile forms. Their spores as well as gametes lack flagellum. They cannot move on their own. So sexual reproduction is completely of oogamous type. The fertilization process and post-fertilization events are highly complex in Rhodophyceae. So this is of oogamous type sexual reproduction. Spores are non-motile. Example, Polycyphonia, Porphyra, which is consumed by human beings as food. Gelidium and Gracilaria are excellent source of the commercial agar-agar which we talked about. The chlorophyll pigments are chlorophyll A and chlorophyll D. The color red comes from the pigment phycoerythrin. Food is stored in the form of Floridian starch which resembles glycogen. Cell wall is made up of cellulose and pectin. Pectin is an important composition of the cell wall. Other than this, there are also some polysulfate esters seen in the cell wall. And as I told you, flagellum is completely absent. That is about the first type of plants, that is the algae or the Thallophyta, which can be seen in the form of green algae, brown algae or red algae. They are present mostly in marine water, fresh water and marine water, and completely in marine water. Let us move on to the second category of plants, that is the bryophyta, commonly called as moss.